Advocacy podcast series, Conversations on African Philanthropy. This series on social movements in Africa was shot at the margins of the third Baraza in Accra. The Baraza is a product of the Zimbabwe Alliance, a project that the Conversations on African Philanthropy covered at the end of 2024. Social movements play huge roles in our society. At the same time, they face massive challenges and obstacles. In this series, we take a look at the different manifestations and typologies of social movements on the continent. The series is but a snapshot. More is needed to fully get a comprehensive grasp of social movements. Join us as we talk to actors from the DRC to Zambia, Malawi, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Ghana, and many more.
Welcome to yet another episode of our Conversations on African Philanthropy with me, Moyo. In this series of our conversations, we are focusing on social movements, and we are shooting this conversation today at the margins of the third Baraza that is hosted by TrustAfrica here in Accra, Ghana. At this moment, I'm really excited to be joined by Maiko Zulu, a reggae artist, a human rights defender, but an international citizen of note. Welcome to the Conversations, Maiko.
Thank you, Comrade Begin-Kosi.
Thank you so much. I was saying that I read somewhere that you used to go by the stage name St. Michael.
Yeah.
And you changed it. What was the reason for changing from St. Michael to Maiko?
Hey, I got so frustrated somewhat, when I had, as a young, artist, very excited. You have this first show in England, the promoter sends everything, the tickets, and you fly to England as St. Michael, and you don't notice anything of African significance there. Yet when we are back home, even the major roads where I was born, I was born in a town they call Livingstone, which should have been Mosotunia. The Falls, the Victoria Falls, those had African names. So I thought, as an African, I'm not doing justice to myself and my people and my race. Because I think there must come a time when we need to take radical decisions. It was a radical decision because it was a brand name. St. Michael was a brand name. I was like the top artist in the country then. And, to kill a brand name and decide to start all over again. I thought I needed to make that radical decision and sacrifice, a bit for future generations. So that is how I changed. I said I would never go again by the name St. Michael. I'll change it to give identity to myself as an African first.
That's interesting, because essentially what you did is a true testament to what you are doing, because you have been recognized not just as a musician, but as a human rights defender. But I would want us to trace some of those significant moments. So, as a reggae musician, a lot of your music is geared towards, in a way, contemporary issues. The other day you performed Cyber Soldier. I would want us to get into that. But I also saw that some of your albums would include things like The Mad President, etc. Let's talk about your music, the role that it plays in society. When people look at you, have you been confused with Bob Marley people?
A lot of times there's a meme back home in Zambia, where they put Bob Marley and myself, and ironically, I have a wife who looks exactly like Rita. Bob Marley's wife, Rita. So,
but Bob Marley and the messages. And then Maiko Zulu and the messages. I mean, we just mentioned Mad President, Cyber Soldier, but all these are lyrics that are geared towards contemporary issues. And that's exactly what music, especially by legends like Bob Marley, used to do.
Comrade, I think it's necessary, you know, for us to do the music that we do, because you know, we live in a society where the issues that a lot of people see from magazines, you know, newspapers or CNN and BBC, we are close to those people. And so for me, the foundation that is in my music, that I laid in my music, comes from a foundation of struggle. Because I grew up, you know, the time when Ian Smith was bombing, you know, Zambia and other regions. You know, my mother was a police officer, you know, and I would see bombs fly over. And you hear the sound, and people would mistake dogs for children. They carry a dog running and coming to my mother's place. So my childhood, you know, was shaped in that way. You know, the Southern African struggle really shaped us, because Zambia hosted a lot of these rebel movements. You know, I saw Joshua Nkomo sleep in my mother's house. You know, and you know, a bazooka across, you know, the house. You know, facing, you know. And to us as young children, then we thought, you know, we shouldn't be taken away from the struggles that shaped us. And when you come to fast forward now, you see that these struggles, yes, we are independent as Africans, they've manifested now into economic slavery. Apparently it's a title of one of my songs again. You know, where unfortunately institutions like the IMF, the World Bank, you know, are the masters of our economic destinies. You know, so I find struggle tied with my music. I don't think, you know, my music would be essential if it was club music. Yes, I love club music. I love to dance. You know. But I think we have enough music that is making us dance. Weekend music, you know. Drive-by music. But we need to infuse the aspect of the arts into real issues, you know, into real social, political, economic issues that really affect you and I.
But you grew up in a farm, heading cattle, goats, and then at the age of 6, you start music. How does that happen? What were the key drivers that made you take on music at the age of 6, but in a space where, you know, you are actually in a farm, literally planting your own food, your own vegetables? Is there a link between music and farms?
For me, I found the farm environment, you know, to be good, you know, for creation. Because most of the times I was just with the animals. You know, and you know, if you have a number of animals, if you are not shouting, you know. So for me, I found a way of communicating with the animals through melody. You know. So like the goats that I was given, you know, specifically, they knew my harmony. So it was easy for me to fuse in and, you know, ignite my creative side. You know, so nature plays quite a huge role in creativity.
Back to music. Let's. What's the message on Made President? And was that significantly in relation to a specific president, or is just the office of the president?
I'll tell you one thing, comrade. When I released that song,
it was banned.
It was banned, yes. And ironically, one member of the biggest opposition party took the CD to Parliament for the government then to listen to. But you know, when they won to become government,
they are the ones who now
they never wanted to
hear that song again.
You see, so I did Mad President, as a satire.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, it's very difficult for us in Africa to talk about a president.
Yeah.
Because presidents are meant to be fearful, because, we have rulers.
Yeah.
Not leaders.
Yeah.
And our presidents are mostly rulers.
Right.
So corruption was taking root in Zambia, at an alarming rate. And I saw that civil society was quiet, politicians were quiet, and you could see the effects. You go into a hospital, a person is dying, you're watching a person dying because they did not just have a needle for a syringe.
Yeah.
So those issues struck me, and I said, I think I need to face the situation head on. If a president that is sitting will feel comfortable with what I'm seeing, so be it. If they are doing the right thing, they are not going to feel uncomfortable. So it's a song that has, lived the test of time, because after every president, after every mad president, we seem to have a madder president. And, it's like they have the same manual book.
Yes.
So it's one of our songs that, we feel is going to live as long as, issues of liberation, struggle, opportunities, economic freedom are not addressed.
Talking of which, you don't just sing, but you also get your hands dirty. You've been involved in some protests as well. And some of them obviously would have landed you in confrontation with the state. Let's link that to the state of civil society in Zambia at the moment. What is your assessment of the state of civil society and social forces, especially in relation to the issues that you sing about, contemporary issues, some of them that end up taking you to the streets?
We are today in Zambia. Let me speak of Zambia specifically, because I have lived the story. Today in Zambia, you have a people that had so much hope, when the Patriotic Front was in power, Zambians wanted change. And we mobilized young people, we got them excited, into the affairs of the country, such that, it had to take young people to make that change. The change was made. Young people went to vote. Everybody went to vote. And a new government was ushered in. The first thing we saw, one of the first acts by the government was to co-opt, critical members of civil society. Into government roles, presidential appointments, and who can, stand up to the hand that feeds them. You see? So
they say he who pays the
bill, the piper.
The piper.
Yes.
He who pays the piper chooses the song.
The tune, So we saw a situation after the 2021 elections where civil society became almost irrelevant, because people became disappointed to say, oh, so these guys were doing it to get jobs. They were not genuine. And it put a lot of us, who have been in the struggle, in the space, in a very difficult position. Because you couldn't say anything. It's either, you are the people that brought us these problems. Because you told us to vote for these people, of course, we never told anybody to vote for a particular individual. Everybody needed the change. Some would say because you have not been given appointments, you have no jobs. So if you speak for the people, they say, oh, no, now you want to speak because you are hungry. So those are the dynamics of civil society in Zambia as we speak today. And I think governments across Africa, they've always taken advantage of movements, especially during election time, and just after election time, such that, a lot of our movements are merely, extensions of the same oppressive regimes or institutions, that we want to stand up against. So Zambia is in like a rebirth. Now, we are beginning to see young people, the likes of my daughter, for example, creating movements. They have the Fix It movement, which I'm also a part of.
Right.
And, it has seen a slight change, in the way that people perceive us now. Because now they've realized that, so in fact, there are activists who are genuine to the cause. Not that we have never been offered opportunities or appointments, but we feel, our independence cannot be compromised. And as long as movements are not able to operate more than 80% freely, because let me not beat about the bush. There is always, a factor, that is going to say, for example, funding.
Yes.
You're not going to stand up against your funder. They'll cut the funding. And there comes a time when movements really need this funding. So the balance ought to be there, but the balance must always be tipping downwards towards, the movement itself and the ideals of that particular movement.
So your titles are all creatively done. I mean, you spoke about economic slavery, made president, and then you performed Cyber Soldier. Let's break down Cyber Soldier.
I think Bob Marley and Peter Tosh, maybe, I don't know whether it was 1963 or something, 73, they did Get Up, Stand Up. Stand up for your rights. And that has been like an anthem for freedom. But now we are in a space where you and I, are able to communicate. We are in a cyberspace. You and I are able to influence change. We are able to mobilize movements. The Arab Spring, was mobilized on
through
Facebook.
the cyberspace.
Our Bush protest in Zambia, the first online protest, even now they don't know where we did it from physically. And that is why we couldn't be arrested. But we were online. So it's a space, that we do not realize that is a space that is going to...
it's got so much potential.
So much. That's the Third World War, my brother. If you talk of Third World War,
it will happen
that
there.
is the space. That is why you see that powerful individuals that have satellites like Elon Musk, they are now controlling the United States government. He's literally a head of state. Because they have visualized that, we can control the world using cyberspace. So I thought I should ignite this year's Baraza, and bring in, the visionary thought of protecting movements, especially from, being brutalized, via cyberspace. In Zambia today, we have a law, the cyber crimes law, and also the cyber security. There are two different laws. So, you find that some of the clauses in these laws are merely meant to police people, like Big Brother, to evade your privacy, so that, you are diluted. If you and I are mobilizing, the oppressor will already have known our plan before we even start. So we need people to be protected from this space. Whether it's digital, it must have a human face, because these are human creations at the end of the day. The advent of AI also, how do we tap into it as movements?
So fascinating stuff, because I think, like you are saying, the next space that is going to be regulated a lot is going to be the cyberspace. So we have always been complaining and concerned about the civic space, but the new space that is going to really have more attention is the cyberspace.
Yeah.
So it provides both the assets and the threats to freedoms, but also to social movements as they are currently configured, which gives me the moment to pivot to your human rights work. So you have received awards, and for your work around defending human rights. I think that's commendable, but one would want to know what have been the challenges operating as a human rights defender. We know in our countries that's one of the most dangerous things to actually do. And you are one of the people that have been in that space, and you've been recognized for doing so. Maybe let's just spend a few minutes just reflecting on some of the challenges that a human rights defender goes through on a day-to-day basis.
Human rights defense is a lonely space, comrade. It's only nice, when you hear people say, we are behind you. But when you look back,
there's no one.
That is the kind of space that we are in. It's a challenge, particularly for me, because as an artist, I need to live, I need to survive. And music is like my bread and butter. It's what takes my children to school, what brings food on my table. Human rights defense has a direct implication on my music. First of all, a lot of media houses in my country cannot even touch my music. Because they don't want their license to be revoked. A lot of venues, cannot accept my gig. They don't want to be labeled. A lot of institutions cannot be seen to be fraternizing with me or associated in any way.
So even corporate gigs are not really something that you can even back on.
So you tend a lot of times to live like the birds, where you pick here, you pick there, But that situation, again, inspires me, because when I look around, especially in our communities in Africa, not the flashy, side of Africa, but the real, the majority of our communities, you see that even if I'm going through these challenges, I think there are people who are going through worse challenges. So I get comfort from that. You cannot be a superstar via activism music or because even the way the arts are controlled, like globally, there is a certain pattern that you see. And it's a pattern, that reduces our women to sex symbols, poster girls and things like that. And it's you cannot be a superstar by doing conscious music most of the time. And that is why you see that the biggest artists in the world today, they do soft music. They do soft music. So, like I had mentioned in the beginning, these challenges are real, but somebody has got to face them. Even family members sometimes, they don't want to be associated with a guy that is likely to go to prison anytime.
And then finally, I saw that you are also an ambassador for children in Zambia. What does that entail?
For me, I look at children as our Bitcoin mine, so to say. Because I think we are not doing a lot as Africans to invest in our children where certain issues are concerned. For example, governance issues, social issues, Africa is seen to be very cultural, very, with our norms and things like that. But we've ignored, inculcating in our children certain doctrines.
Yeah.
The Nazis, succeeded because their doctrine started with children.
Yeah.
They indoctrinated children first, such that, by the time a child was becoming 18, they were fully fledged and, in support,
of the system. Yeah.
And that is what we need to do as Africans.
Yeah.
We don't need to compromise, let us bring the issues down to our children, because a certain generation has already been lost. You and I, we live on, fried burger and chips, and we've created all these cancers. There must come a time when we need to go back to our diet, grow a certain cadre of children, invest, the way governments do. They have these 30-year development plans. That is what we must do. And for me, working with children, I think is one of the most humbling jobs or works that I do. And I think all of us need to, try and do something with the children.
Final day of the Baraza, what are your key takeaway moments or key takeaway lessons? And I know there's a concert today. What will you be performing?
Tonight I would like to perform Uganda is Bleeding. Because, we are talking about solidarity. And that is what has struck me most in the Baraza. How, we as Africans need to be in solidarity with each other. If Zimbabwe is burning, Zambia is burning.
It will burn.
Tanzania will burn. Congo will burn. So we cannot ignore some of the words of Kwame Nkrumah. We are in Ghana today, and what Nkrumah and other leaders, the Nyereres, the Selasses, Kaundas, what they envisioned for Africa is, I think, what we must carry forward. So my song Uganda is Bleeding is in solidarity, because at some point there was a massacre in a town called Kayunga. I've never been there, but I felt I needed to show my solidarity as an African. Because what is good for me should be good for a Ugandan. And it's just these colonial borders that divided us. So I hope that our music will live on long after we are dead, the way Nkrumah's voices are living today, long after they are gone.
Right. Thank you so much for taking the time and having a conversation with us on the sidelines of the Baraza. I'm really excited about your music. In fact, in preparing for this, I started reading up and listening to some of it. And I think one of the things we should do as we upload this is to maybe create links to your music. Because it's conscious music. And like you said, conscious music may not necessarily get you the wealth that other artists are getting, but the legacy that it leaves behind for our children is the kind of wealth that money cannot buy.
True,
so thank you for your music. Thank you for the work that you do as a human rights defender. Thank you for also taking the conditions and aspirations of children into your own existence.
Thank you so much, my brother.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was Maiko Zulu joining us here on the margins of the Baraza. He's a reggae artist, he's a human rights defender, but also, as you heard, he's an ambassador for children in Zambia. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the CAPSI podcast series, Conversations on African Philanthropy.